Now let's go and apply some of the spacing that we have here. And one of the things that we can do here is to actually use a table so that we can have them all aligned much better here in our browser. I just noticed that we placed the HR here on top of the objective header 3. I would want to transfer that below the your name H1. Now I want to go and use the table element and then create a table row that will contain a TD that is empty with a class of TD empty. Because if we try to look at the layout here, we can have a table that contains two table data cells in columns, and we have one row here, our first row. Now let's go and add the content here of the TD that contains the street address, city, ST, zip code, telephone, and the email. Now let's go and refresh the browser here. So we now have our street address here. Now what we want to do is to add some space or padding inside of our TD empty element. So let's go to our style sheet here and select our TD empty element here, and let's give it a background color of red and a padding of at least 100 pixels so that we can see what's happening inside of our table. So let's go implement that. TD empty background color orange red, and then let's have a padding of at least 50 pixels. Now let's see what will happen on our browser here. So you will see that we don't want the padding to be implemented on top, right, bottom, and left. We only want some space from the left side to be empty so that it will be similarly positioned, similar to the template that we have here. So let's remove the padding to the top, padding to the right, and padding to the bottom. So we can do this by just specifying padding left. Now let's go back to our browser and let's have it refreshed. Now we still want to increase the space of the table data cell here, so at least it will be moved a little bit more to the right side. Let's go increase our padding to the left, at least 100 pixels. Now let's see on how this will look on our browser. We can see that we were able to add some space from the left side of the table data cell that is not empty. We can go and implement additional rows here so that we can add some space below the first row. So let's go have tr times 3, and in each of the table rows we want to have td times 2. Let's go and format that. Let's go and save that, and you will see that it only gave us a little space here because we haven't added any padding yet inside of our TD elements below the first row. Now let's go add some padding inside of our TDs. Let's have padding of 5 pixels from the top, 0 pixels from the right, 3 pixels from the bottom, and 2 pixels from the left. Now let's see what will happen if we try to refresh this. So there's more space now inside of our TDs. Now let's go and try to give this a background color so that we can see better what is currently happening on our browser. Now let's go and try to refresh that. So we can see here that there's some spaces, and now we have our first row, second row, third row, and fourth row. Now let's try to go work on the other sections of our project here. So I'm going down to the objective here, and I'm going to add an HR below it. And what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to copy this table and I'm going to paste it inside of our section 1. Now let's check what that will look like on our browser. Now let's go change the content here. So let me go type the content inside of our table data cell for our first section. Now let's go and try to refresh our browser here. Okay, so now let's go and try to apply that in our skills section. I'm sure you already know what we should be doing here, so we can go and have section 2 here. And inside of the skills section, I'm just going to go and put the HR below the skills and abilities. And then I'm going to copy the whole table here and paste it inside of the section number 2. Now let's go and try to refresh. Now let's go and replace the content here into the content that is available here. So we can actually just copy and paste that from our Microsoft Word. So let's go and place that here. And refresh our browser. Now I would want to go and use the th element for defining the dates from to here. So let's go and implement that here in our project. I'm just going to also copy this table here and then insert it here inside of our experience section, and then have our HR here below the experience header or heading, and that will be our section 3. Now I would want to go and insert a first row here. So this will be our second row. This is going to be our first row that will contain the th and the td. So let's go and try to apply that or implement that. So we have a table row with a th and a td. And the th will be containing the dates from to, and the td will be containing the job title. And I want to emphasize the company name here. So let's now go and try to check our browser and see what that will look like. Now let's go and implement some change for the styling of our th element here. Now I want to go and select the th selector and give it a font weight of 400 and color of black. Let's see how that will look on our browser. Now let's go and copy this content here, Control C, and then go back to our code editor. And here inside of our td here, let's paste that content. And then also let's add an S here. Now let's go back to our browser and refresh. Now let's go and copy the 2 rows here, so that we will have another set of rows here that will contain the dates from to and job title, company name. And then I'm going to give a background color for the th. Let's say green. Now let's go and refresh our browser. Now we can see clearly here the distinguishment between each of the table data cells. Now let's go back to our markup here and then copy this table up to here, and then let's go and create our next section. I just want to go and remove the horizontal rule here and then place it under our heading. Now let's go and apply dates from to here and then change this to degree and location and school name. Now I just want to go and remove this for the meantime. So we will only have one row here. Now let's go see what that will look like on our browser. Okay, now for the final parts, let's go and copy the table here in our section 1, section 2, section 3, we have section 4, and for our section 5, I'm just going to remove the horizontal rule here. You would see that when you're using tables, it's really quite complicated sometimes. I just wanted to show you here on how you can actually use tables for adding some spaces in the layout of your website, and how it can become quite complicated once you do this, especially for layout purposes. Now let's go and copy the content here under our communication section and see how that will look like on our browser. I just noticed here that we have some text here that we also want to go and remove so that we will be able to copy the content of the education section here. So let's go and try to remove this row and then try to copy the table here and place it inside of our leadership section. Let me go copy the content here. Now let's go and refresh our browser, and we can see now that we have the necessary content similar to our template here. Now let's go and remove the background colors here and see how that will look like on our browser. Let me just go back to our code editor here and then try to comment out some of the background colors that we have specified inside of our style sheet. Let's refresh our browser. We can see here that we have some extra HR here, so let's go and remove that. So we shouldn't have an HR on top of the leadership and the communication section. So let's go to our code editor here and see what we made here, or what I did here that caused that. So we do have an extra section here. So here we don't want an HR on top of the communication. Now let's go and try to refresh this, and we can now see that we now have our template transformed into a website. From a template or a layout design that was made by Microsoft Word, we were able to transform that into a website using HTML and the use of tables. Let me just go back to our code editor here, and we actually only needed 6 sections. Let me just name the last section here because we considered this as a part of the header element. I'm hoping that this exercise gave you a more thorough understanding on how to maximize the use of tables. So congratulations guys, you were now able to build your own first front-end development project from where you transformed a layout or a design from Microsoft Word and you transformed that into a website.